Hey there. Tonight, we're going somewhere quiet but heavy, into the heart of the Aztec Empire. Not the one carved on stone walls, but the one made of breath, skin, rules, and waiting. A place where life wasn't loud, but constant. Where pain wasn't rare, just unnoticed. Where every day felt borrowed and still went on. No battles, no kings, just what it meant to exist beneath them. So lower the lights, find stillness, let the noise fade, and let yourself sink into a world that demanded everything and remembered almost no one. You kneel, not because someone told you to, not even because you believe, but because this is what has always been done. The stone beneath your knees is warm from the bodies before you. The incense curls into your eyes, the smoke carrying prayers you don't remember learning, in words older than your father's name. A drop of blood slides down your arm, and no one notices. Or maybe everyone sees, and that's the point. Devotion here is not a feeling. It's not a hope or a question. It's a practice, a constant shaping of your life to fit the hollow space carved out by the gods. You bow not because you want to, but because something in you says it would be wrong not to, and you don't want to know what happens when something is done wrong. No one does. Not anymore. You rise only when the others do. The ceremony is finished, but it leaves a weight behind, like the smell of wet stone or the ache in your thighs. You've said the words, offered the pain, made the motions. Whether the gods heard is not your concern. That belongs to the priests. You only provide the vessel. Still, even after it's over, your hands feel too empty, your back too bare. There is no comfort in obedience, only quiet, and the hope that you weren't seen failing. Later, you'll rub salt into the cut on your arm, as is required. A small cut, deliberate. Not enough to weaken you, just enough to mean something. That's what matters here. Everything must mean something, or it's an offense. The clothing on your back was dyed a certain color because of your status. The food you eat today is limited by a fast declared for a god you've never spoken to, on a date chosen by stars you do not understand. You do not laugh loudly during certain moons. You do not eat maize prepared in the wrong way. You do not walk through the eastern gate during festival days. Not because you remember why, but because the last man who did is no longer mentioned. You saw his house vanish, stone by stone, and the space where it once stood is now a space no one steps into. That is devotion. Not the stories, not even the rituals, but the forgetting, the erasing. The weight you carry is not your own. It's centuries thick, and you carry it because others did. And if you stop, others won't know why they carry it, but they still will. There's a child today who will be offered to Tlaloc. You won't see it. You're not part of that group, but you hear about it. Not in whispers, not in shock, but in the same tone someone might mention a long walk or a change in the weather. The child must cry. That's important. The crying makes the offering stronger. You don't question why. You never have. You don't even flinch. You only remember to look down and keep your hands where they can be seen. Maybe one day you'll be chosen to carry a torch, or prepare the altar, or clean the tools. Maybe you'll be chosen to give more than a cut. But not today. Today, your role was small. Still, it was needed. Still, you did it. And that's enough. That's devotion. Not faith, not love, just enough. It's always corn. sometimes ground into a soft, pale dough, sometimes flattened and left to char at the edges, sometimes boiled until it thickens into a paste that clings to your mouth. But always corn. You wake with the taste of it still on your tongue from yesterday, and by nightfall, it will be there again. Your fingers smell of it, your breath carries it, and your stomach recognizes its promise. Not of fullness. Never that. Just a kind of quiet dullness, a momentary pause in the ache. There's salt if you're lucky, a trace of chili if someone traded well, but even then the core remains the same. No meat, no sweetness, no change. Just the same dry weight pressing outward from inside you, never quite leaving and never quite enough. You tell yourself it's sacred. Everyone does. Maize is the body of the gods. The first humans were made of it, they say. The gods tried mud, wood, even bone, but only corn gave birth to people who could survive. You repeat this silently when the meal tastes like dust, when your hands cramp from grinding kernels on stone, when you swallow again and feel nothing move inside you. You chew longer than needed, hoping to fool your body into thinking there's more. You stretch the meal into ritual, turning hunger into reverence. But your body knows. It always knows. After a time, your stomach no longer growls. It just hardens, a dull stone inside you that doesn't shift. And still, you say thank you when you eat. Not because you're full, but because you're not empty enough to forget how it could be worse. Sometimes there's beans, and the older ones call it a feast. The beans are dry and sharp, their skin sticking in your teeth. But they add weight, not comfort, but resistance. They slow the hunger, give it something to work through. On rare days, you taste avocado or a smear of squash, and it almost breaks your rhythm. Something soft, something round, something your body doesn't expect. But then it's gone, and the next meal is corn again. Always corn. The same texture, the same shape in your hands. You no longer remember if you ever truly liked it. Children chew it slowly the first few years, confused by how much they are told to love what gives them so little. You were one of them once. Now you just eat, and don't speak while doing it. Speaking wastes energy. Speaking makes you notice the taste. Better to stay quiet and finish what's there. You wonder sometimes if the gods ever eat it. If the offerings piled onto altars are consumed in some real way, or if they too receive only the gesture. You think about the priests, with their broader chests and cleaner nails. You've seen the remnants of their meals, bones scraped clean, colors that don't exist in your own bowl. You don't blame them. They speak to the gods. They bleed for them. But still, when the meal ends and you wipe your fingers on your thigh, you can't help but feel the distance. Not between you and the priests, between you and being full. You have eaten, and you are not hungry. But you are not satisfied either. There's no word for that in your language. Only the silence after a meal. Only the way your body braces itself for the same thing tomorrow. And the next day, and again, corn, always corn. The itching begins before the sun has even risen. A low, crawling irritation that starts at the back of your neck and spreads across your shoulders, your arms, your chest. You don't scratch right away. You've learned not to. Scratching brings welts. Welts bring breaks in the skin. And broken skin is just another open door for dirt, for rot, for whatever lives in the bite of the things that feed while you sleep. Mosquitoes, ants, fleas, creatures you've never seen but feel. They hide in your sleeping mat, in the woven edges of your clothing, in the cracks of the wall beside your head. You bathe when you can, but the water doesn't stop them. Sometimes it draws more. The heat rises quickly, clinging to your skin like wet bark, sealing in the sweat and dust from the day before. The moisture doesn't soothe, it boils. Beneath your arms, behind your knees, along your spine, always damp, always stinging. You carry the smell of your own skin like a second garment. Earth, salt, smoke. The sun doesn't warm you gently, it roasts you slowly. Your shoulders peel, your nose cracks. Your hands split open in thin, precise lines from constant friction. No ointment softens them. No cloth stays clean long enough to wrap them. You rub ashes into the worst spots like your mother taught you. But the relief is brief and coarse. Some parts of your body never fully heal. You forget what smooth skin feels like. You only know what stings when touched. The air itself turns against you, sometimes thick with humidity that clings, sometimes dry enough to tear your lips as you speak. You bleed without injury. You wince without impact. The pain is low, constant, and dull, like a background hum you've learned to ignore, except when something shifts and it sharpens suddenly. Then you pause, press the spot, and wait to see if it passes. Clothing offers little protection. The fabric is coarse, woven thick but loose, holding in heat and dust together. It rubs in all the wrong places, under your arms, behind your neck, around your thighs where the sweat collects. You adjust it, fold it, try to soften it, but it always returns to its shape. You've long since accepted that comfort is not the point. Clothes are for modesty, for function, for obedience. They are not for you. The sandals cut into the sides of your feet, especially when wet. The straps rub your skin raw, but you wear them anyway. Because bare feet mean thorns, insects, sharp stones baked hot by midday. You choose your pain carefully, trading one kind for another. There are no soft options here, no real rest for the body. You sleep on a mat that absorbs the dirt from your skin and gives it back the next night. Insects come and go. You feel them crawl and you do not move. Sometimes you catch yourself staring at someone else's skin, not from desire, from comparison. You look for signs. Rashes, bites, scars, burns, and you find them. Everyone carries them. Some worse than you, some better. No one is untouched. The children scratch until they bleed. The elders sit in shade, their skin like dry bark. No one mentions it. No one asks. Pain on the surface is not pain that earns attention. You could be bleeding from 5 places and still be asked to carry water. Unless the wound is too deep to hide, you keep going. You grow used to discomfort in a way that frightens you sometimes. That you no longer notice when something begins to sting. That you don't flinch when something bites. That your body has become a landscape of constant small battles. And you've forgotten what it means to be whole. You're not falling apart. You're simply wearing down. One itch, one crack, one burn at a time. There are always eyes on you, not watching you exactly, just registering that you're there. You move through the street, past traders and carriers, past boys with baskets and women with bundles, and no one stops. No one greets. You're part of the motion, like stone underfoot. Necessary, familiar, replaceable. They see your shape, your steps, your role. You lift what you're told to lift. You wait where you're told to wait. And when you speak, it is with words already expected of you. The boy who counts the maize doesn't know your name, though he calls to you. The elder who blesses the field recognizes your face, but not the thoughts behind it. You are counted, measured, assigned, but never asked, never truly spoken to. Not because you are disliked, just because there is no reason to know more. You're not hiding, you're simply not needed beyond your function. At the temple steps, you join a line, backs in front of you, feet behind you, the same position every week, though no one tells you so. It just becomes yours. The person beside you might have stood there for years, but you don't know. You never looked at their eyes long enough. You nod when it's time. You kneel when you should. When the ritual ends, you rise with everyone else and disperse like water poured from a jar. The line reforms in another place the next day, and again you take your place without thought. Even your shadow blends with theirs. No one calls you out. No one calls you close. If you were to vanish tomorrow, someone else would step forward, and the space you left would not echo. It would simply close. You'd be missed only by your absence in the count, not in the heart. You are a number, a hand, a footfall, never more. Children sometimes stare longer than adults. Their eyes haven't learned to skim. They follow you as you pass, curious without knowing why. But they too will forget. Soon enough, they'll learn the rhythm, who to notice, who to ignore, who to fear. Their games mimic the rituals, their chants echo the marketplace, and their eyes will begin to glaze over when they look at you. You wonder briefly if anyone has ever really seen you, not your shape, not your tasks, but you. The ache behind your silence, the thoughts you do not speak aloud, the quiet way your hand trembles when you wake. But those are not things this world asks about. There's no ceremony for that, no role, no title. Your pain, your dreams, your doubts, those are yours alone. And perhaps even you forget them after a while. The self fades when it is never called by name. And yet, you continue. You show up where you must. You answer when spoken to. You bear witness to lives that pass beside yours like river currents, close, cold, and silent. Sometimes someone offers you food without speaking. Sometimes someone takes your place in line and does not look at you. Sometimes you feel the weight of being in a place without belonging to it. But you stay, because this is what life is: motion without memory, purpose without personhood. You are not invisible. That would be easier. You are seen, but never known. And the space where you should be, the space that is you, is never truly touched. Not by the priests, not by the market, not even by yourself, only by time. And time never looks back. There's a way to hold your hands when passing the temple. Palms flat, fingers close, arms still. Not too low or it's seen as careless. Not too high or it's seen as mockery. No one teaches you this. You just watch long enough until your body learns without asking. The streets have rules, the markets have rules, your own door has rules. You do not speak first to someone older unless spoken to. You do not whistle indoors. You do not sleep facing west. You do not wash on certain days unless permitted. The rules shape you before you know your own voice. They fill your mouth, your eyes, your limbs, until nothing you do feels like your own. Even silence has form. Even walking has a rhythm. You pause at the same corners, bow your head at the same shrines, speak the same words in the same order each morning. It's not devotion, it's design. And it's older than you are. You wear the clothes your caste allows. Their cut, their color, even the way they're tied. None of it is chosen. If the sash is crooked, you are corrected. If the hem falls too short, it is adjusted. A mistake in dress isn't a small error, it's an offense. A misstep in behavior isn't embarrassment, it's a mark. And once you are marked, the memory lingers. You remember the boy who laughed during prayer and was slapped so hard he couldn't open his eye for days. You remember the girl who used the wrong word for the priest's offering and wasn't seen again in your quarter. You don't ask what happened to her. Some rules are written in absence. You follow them not because they make sense, not because you believe in them, but because they are there. And they do not move. So you move around them, always careful, always rehearsed. The calendar tells you when to plant, when to fast, when to stay indoors. The priests read the stars, and the stars read you. You don't know their language, but their decisions shape your days. Today you may eat chili, tomorrow only salt. This week is for silence, next week for singing. One day you might be called to pour water on the altar with your left hand instead of your right. If you hesitate, you dishonor the cycle. You don't understand why, but the body must obey even what the mind cannot grasp. You were born into this net, not tangled, just contained. Every festival, every sacrifice, every ritual, every offering, it all spins tighter around you. And when you do something right, no one notices. When you do something wrong, the whole square feels it. So you practice being correct, even when alone, even in sleep, even in thought. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to raise your voice without permission, to laugh at the wrong time, to walk out of rhythm. But you never do, not because of fear, though that is part of it, but because your body no longer knows how. You've become a vessel of the rules, and the longer you live, the more you hollow out to make room for them. You pass them on without meaning to, correcting the younger ones, guiding the unsure. Not because you want power, but because it's what was done for you. The system moves through you like breath. You are both its product and its tool. And even if you stopped, even if you stood still and said nothing, the rules would go on without you. They do not care who follows, only that someone does. And you do, because you always have, because you don't know who you are without them. You do not walk alone, even when there is no one beside you. Every step, every breath, every pause in thought. Watched. Not by people, not by those who speak or punish or praise, but by something deeper, older. The eyes of gods are not like human eyes. They do not blink. They do not look away. They do not forget. The stone idols see nothing and everything. The painted masks in the temple, the carved faces on rooftops, the jaguar glyphs etched into doorways, all are reminders that your life is never just your own. You chew your food quietly, because the gods gave you that food. You tie your tunic with both hands, because one hand is disrespectful. You greet the sunrise not because it needs greeting, but because to ignore it is to invite drought. And you've seen drought. You remember the bones in dry fields, the mothers who offered hair and blood and still received silence. There's a god for water, a god for fire, a god for wind, for corn, for death, for salt, for flowers. Some days you forget which one to speak to, but you never forget that they're there. Even when you pretend you do, you feel them when the wind changes direction. You feel them in the heavy stillness before the rain. You feel them when your foot slips near the canal, and you know it was not just clumsiness. The gods don't speak, but they answer. Sometimes too late, sometimes with absence, but always with weight. A cracked pot, a child's fever, a missing bird. You do not ask why. You do not say their names too loudly. You whisper them through offerings, through rituals, through patterns traced into flour or ash or breath. And even then you are careful, because the gods are not kind. They are not cruel either. They are exact. You've watched the priests draw blood from their tongues, from their thighs, from their ears. You've seen their faces, calm, distant, hollowed by practice. The gods require pain, not out of cruelty, but because pain is clear. It speaks without confusion. It marks the body, leaves proof. Words are slippery. Tears can lie. But blood is true. You've offered your own many times, sometimes through cuts you make yourself, sometimes through tasks that leave you raw and blistered, and sometimes just by standing where you're told, under sun or rain, without question. All of it seen, all of it counted, not always by people, often by no one. But still, it matters, because if the gods see you, then perhaps they will spare you, or at least spare your family. That is enough. That is all you can ask. Even in sleep, they wait. Even in silence, they hear. You catch yourself muttering their names without thinking, when lifting a heavy basket, when stepping over a snake, when watching smoke rise too slowly from a cooking fire. You carry them with you, not out of belief, not out of love, but because they are there, like the air, like the sky. You do not know what happens when they're truly angered. Or perhaps you do. You've heard the stories, the great flood, the darkness that lasted for days, the year when the sun refused to rise. You've seen the offerings placed on tall platforms, bodies still warm, hearts gone. You looked up once and saw blood running down the steps like water. No one screamed. No one turned away. The gods demand, and when they do not receive, they remind. So you obey. So you offer. So you live carefully, beneath the weight of their watching. Always watching. The work is already waiting when you arrive. It doesn't greet you. It doesn't pause. It just continues, as if your presence is a brief convenience, not a necessity. The earth doesn't care that your back aches before you bend. The stone doesn't care that your fingers are raw. The work does not ask if you're ready. It simply assumes you are. Someone was here before you, digging, hauling, smoothing, lifting. Their footprints still soft in the dirt, their blood not yet dried on the tools. You pick up where they left off, not because it's yours, but because it must be done. The path to the temple must be leveled. The walls of the canal must be reshaped. The field must be cleared of roots and bone. And you, your hands, your spine, your silence, are the method. You are not alone. Others move beside you. You do not speak. The sounds are metal, stone, breath. The rhythm is the rhythm of shared exhaustion. There's a man whose fingernails are torn, a woman with a bandage soaked through, a boy too young to carry what he carries. No one stops. No one is told to continue. They just do. The work has a momentum stronger than your muscles, older than your bones. It began before you were born. It will outlast your life. You are a temporary solution to a permanent demand. You lift the block not because it will finish the temple, but because someone must. You smooth the mud not because it will be noticed, but because uneven earth is a kind of offense, and offense creates consequences you cannot afford. The tools are heavy, not by weight, but by repetition. The stone blade scrapes skin along with bark. The carrying rope cuts into your shoulders no matter how you shift it. You've tried cloth, straw padding, even folded leaves, but the pain just moves to a different place. Your joints click when you kneel. Your skin splits in the same spots. Blisters become scars, and scars reopen when you flex. You do not mention this. There is no merit in pain here, only completion. You've seen people collapse and be dragged away, not in anger, just in necessity. The space they leave must be filled before the dirt settles. So you drink from the cracked pot. You wipe your hands on stone. You return to the task before your breath returns fully. Not because you are strong, but because there is no other choice. By the time you pause, the sun is high and your body no longer feels separate from what it moves. Your legs are numb in places. Your arms buzz. You taste salt, but there is no salt, just sweat and dust. You eat if food is passed to you. You don't ask when the break ends. There is no signal, only motion. Someone will rise, then someone else, and eventually you will too. You may finish this path by nightfall. You may not. There is always more. Another pile, another surface, another instruction from someone above you, whose hands remain clean. You do not resent them. Resentment is a luxury. You are a tool among tools, a muscle among muscles. The work does not know your name. It does not care how long you've endured. It only cares that you keep going, and you do, because you woke up, because you are still able to stand, because the work began before you, and it will not stop. You feel it before anyone speaks, a stillness that spreads faster than sound. Something tightens in the shoulders of the man next to you. A mother draws her child slightly closer, though nothing has changed in the air. Eyes avoid each other. Hands move slower, as if unsure where they belong. No orders were given. No names were called. And yet the fear arrives, thick and shared. It's not yours, not exactly, but it enters you all the same. A fear born from memory, from rumor, from what happens when the wrong person notices the wrong thing. You carry your own fear like a stone beneath your ribs. But now there's more. Strangers' fears seeping into your posture, making you smaller, quieter, heavier. You are not afraid of what will happen to you. Not directly. You are afraid because others are, and because that's how fear works here. It doesn't need reason, it only needs presence. You've seen what happens when fear becomes visible. When someone moves too fast, speaks too loudly, asks too directly. The reaction is never immediate, but it always comes. A visit from an official, a disappearance, a sudden need to relocate. And when it does, no one says the word punishment. They only say consequence. The difference is thin. You remember a boy who joked in the market, just once, just lightly. The laugh didn't land, and 2 days later, he was sweeping temple steps with his hair shaved off. He didn't return to your quarter. He didn't need to. The message returned in his place. Since then, even children carry the weight differently. Their play is quieter. Their eyes track movements like adults. And when they're afraid, they don't cry. They watch. And that watching passes to you like breath across your neck. There's a ritual next week. You're not sure what it's for. That's not your role. But those who know walk with urgency now, and you adjust your pace to match. Not out of curiosity, out of caution. Fear sharpens attention. It teaches silence. You mirror the restraint of those around you because that is safer than asking. You move when they move. You nod when they nod. Your words become fewer and your pauses longer. At night, you sleep closer to the wall, not because it protects you, but because it feels less open, less exposed. You hear conversations end as you enter the rooms. You learn which topics are too thin to touch, which names are too loud to say. And in that learning, you carry fragments of everyone else's fear, pressed between your ribs, tucked beneath your tongue. It builds, layer by layer, like dust that never washes off. Eventually, it feels normal to wake up already bracing for what's unspoken, to eat beside someone whose thoughts you do not want to know, to offer thanks without warmth, just in case someone's listening who shouldn't be. You forget what your own fear felt like before it merged with theirs. It's no longer sharp. It's a weight. Not crushing, but constant. You live beneath it without screaming, because no one else does. That's how it stays in place, not by force, by agreement, quiet, heavy agreement. So you carry your neighbor's silence, your cousin's glances, the clenched hands of strangers you pass but never greet. You carry it all without question. Because if everyone is afraid, then someone must be careful. And that someone today is you. The walls around you are not yours. They shelter you from rain, from wind, from noise, but they do not belong to you. You sweep the floor, patch the holes, stack what little you own in corners, and still it remains borrowed space. If the land shifts in value, if the name on the scroll changes, if someone above decides to repurpose the area, you leave. Not tomorrow, not after discussion. You simply go. Your shelter becomes someone else's, and the work you put into it vanishes with a gesture. The stones you placed are reused. The hearth is relit by another family, and your absence becomes part of the place, like a shadow that never learned to leave. No one asks if it was fair. Fairness is not a concept you were raised with, only order. And in that order, things come and go, but never truly belong. Even your clothing is not truly yours. You wear what your role allows, what your caste permits. If the fabric is too fine, you are warned. If the dye is too rich, you are fined. The sash on your waist was given to you when your task changed. You may wash it, mend it, fold it carefully, but you cannot change it. You cannot pass it down. If you are reassigned or punished or forgotten, the sash returns to someone else, or no one. And still, you tend to it as if it were a possession, as if the act of care could create a bond stronger than regulation. But even the act of wearing is conditional. You've seen what happens when a man loses his place. His clothing is taken. His hair is cut. He walks through the square covered in nothing but dust. And all know he had, and then he didn't. That's all it takes. You think of the tools you use each day, the blade for cutting maize, the woven basket, the digging stick. None are truly yours. They're passed along, shared, borrowed. If you break one, you owe a debt. If you carry one too long, someone asks why. The idea of ownership is flexible here, strong enough to demand responsibility, but weak enough to dissolve under pressure. Even your body is spoken of as a vessel, for work, for sacrifice, for purpose, never for self. You may feed it, wash it, protect it, but that doesn't make it yours. Not really. You've seen bodies given to gods, not asked, given, and no one called it theft. They called it duty. You look at your hands sometimes and wonder how long they'll be needed before they, too, are no longer considered yours. The only thing you might think of as truly your own is memory. But even that is shaped by the stories others allow you to hear. History belongs to the priests. Songs belong to the singers. The stories you pass to children must follow rules. You cannot speak of times before the empire. You cannot describe the faces of those who were punished. You cannot even name your own pain without risk. So your memories curl inward, becoming quieter, less certain. You forget whether something happened to you or to someone like you. You forget whether it mattered. You forget what it felt like to hold something and not wonder when it would be taken. And so each day, you touch the ground, the tools, the walls, and remind yourself, this is not mine. It is here, and I am allowed to use it. For now, that is enough. It has to be it. You learn quickly that pain isn't a message. It doesn't arrive to warn you. It doesn't come to change you. It simply appears, stays, and leaves when it wants. Sometimes not at all. You're beaten for being too slow, even if your hands never stopped. You're struck for being too loud, even if your mouth was closed. You're burned by the sun, by hot stone, by cooking ash. And no one asks what you did, because that's not how pain works here. It isn't earned. It isn't deserved. It just happens. The stick lands whether you meant the mistake or not. The punishment is not a lesson. No one asks what you've learned. No one cares if you'll do better. The pain arrives, and you move on. If you cry, it's weakness. If you don't, it's silence. Either way, you're expected to keep working. Hunger is the same. It doesn't teach restraint. It doesn't shape your character. It drains you, quietly, repeatedly. Some days, you feel lightheaded just from standing. Your arms tremble when they shouldn't. Your knees don't bend as easily as they used to. You chew slower to trick your stomach. You sleep early not out of rest, but to forget the emptiness inside you. But there's no lesson in that. No deeper meaning. You aren't fasting to please the gods. You aren't denied for discipline. The food simply isn't there. Or if it is, it isn't for you. You see others eat more, priests, officials, warriors, and you say nothing. Hunger isn't something you solve. It's something you carry. And after a while, it becomes part of you, like bone or breath. Pain has no conclusion. It just continues. Sometimes it comes from nowhere. A rock in your sandal you didn't notice. A rope that slips and takes skin with it. A pot that breaks and cuts your hand as you try to catch it. You don't react anymore. Not with anger. Not with surprise. Just a pause. A breath. A glance to see if the wound will stop bleeding on its own. If not, you wrap it. If yes, you continue. You've learned to hide your limping. You've learned to stretch while others aren't looking. You've learned which muscles hurt in which positions and how to avoid showing it. Not because you're taught to be strong, but because attention invites more. There's no reward for endurance here. No one praises your silence. No one rewards your tolerance. But if you complain, if you pause, if you draw notice to your pain, it only grows. So you stay quiet. And pain becomes background. Even when others are hurt, the same pattern holds. You see someone fall, and no one moves to help. Not because they're cruel, because they've learned. You help if you're told. You look if it's allowed. Otherwise, you keep going. That man will either stand again or he won't. Either way, the task must be finished. And if you stop, if you're late, if your hands don't move fast enough, you may be next. That's what pain teaches here. Not discipline, not reflection, but obedience, movement, endurance. It doesn't make you wiser. It doesn't make you better. It just shapes you, slowly, quietly, without permission, until you no longer ask why it hurts. Only whether it will stop before you sleep, and if not, whether it will let you sleep anyway. The water looks clean, at least from a distance. It moves slowly near the banks, catching light in dull streaks. You kneel, roll up what little cloth you wear, and lower yourself in carefully, like always. The bottom is soft, uneven, littered with smooth stones and bits of things that shouldn't be there. You feel them with your feet, fragments of pottery, bits of bark, and something else, something harder, something slick. You don't look too closely. You never do. This is where you bathe, where you clean your arms, your face, your feet, where you rinse away the dust, the sweat, the smoke of the hearth. Others are here too, farther up or farther down. Some washing clothes, some pouring buckets over children's heads, some just sitting still, letting the current pass around them. The river belongs to everyone, but it's never truly yours. You've seen blood here, not the kind that comes from bruises or cuts, but the kind that's poured with purpose. On festival days, the water runs darker, not everywhere, just in swirls and streaks that drift past. No one speaks of it. No one stops using the river. The priests come early or late, and the offerings are made with ritual precision. The animals are held firm. The blades are clean. The chants spoken in voices calm and practiced. When it's over, they wash their hands, their tools, their robes, and that washing becomes part of the river, just like yours. No separate space, no sacred section, just water, shared by all. You learn not to flinch when something floats near you. A feather, a scrap of cloth, a thin stream of red. You shift away, gently, as if the movement itself is a prayer. On quieter days, you wonder what remains at the bottom. How much has settled there? Ashes from burned offerings, threads from ceremonial garments, bone fragments too small to notice. You picture a layer building slowly beneath you, like memory turned to sediment. Not evil, not even unclean, just always there. You don't ask if it's safe. Safety isn't a question you ask of water. It is what it is. You use it because you must, because there's nowhere else. The stone basins near the temples are not for people like you. Those are kept for the higher castes, for those who offer themselves in cleaner ways. You've rinsed clothes still damp with sweat and blood in this same river. You've tasted the water, even knowing what's in it. Your body knows how to endure what the mind avoids. No one talks while bathing. Words feel wrong here, too soft, too personal. You listen instead, to the shifting of water, to distant footsteps, to the rustle of cloth being wrung out. You move slowly, respectfully, as if the water could be offended, as if it remembers more than you do, and maybe it does. You don't know how many prayers have been whispered into it, how many names carried downstream. You just lower your hands, scrub your arms, and pretend it helps. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But the river doesn't promise cleansing. It offers space to manta, contact, motion. You emerge not purified, not healed, but rinsed. And that is enough. Even if your skin still smells of smoke, even if your hair still holds the day's dust, even if, as you rise, something dark and red floats briefly past you and disappears. You don't measure your life in years, but in obligations, not in seasons, but in requirements. The calendar is carved into everything: stone, wood, memory. It tells you when to rise, when to fast, when to eat without joy. It tells you when to keep silent, when to chant, when to offer something: food, time, pain, yourself. You don't control it. You barely understand it. The priests read the signs, interpret the stars, feel the shifts. You just obey. Today, your breath must be shallow. Today, your voice must stay quiet. Tomorrow, you may be allowed to speak. Not because anything has changed inside you, but because a symbol turned, a god stirred, a date returned. And so your body moves with the rhythm of something written long before you were born. You do not resist. You inhale when it says inhale. You hold your breath when it says hold. You endure because it says you must. Some days are heavy with ritual. You wake before the sky changes and prepare offerings with hands half asleep. The food is simple, but arranged in precise forms. The incense is ground carefully, though you do not know what it's meant to attract or repel. You tie the cloth in the correct knots. You step in the correct direction. Even your silence has a pattern. The entire day is spent in function, not reflection, not celebration. If the gods are pleased, no one tells you. If they are not, the drought returns. The sickness spreads, and someone pays. You don't ask who decides, you just follow. The others do too. You've seen old men who can barely walk still press their foreheads to stone on the designated day. Children too young to understand still wave the smoke in practiced shapes. No one is exempt. The calendar allows no exceptions, only adjustments. Even the days called festivals are not free. You wear better clothes, but they itch. You eat different food, but it costs more. You watch dancers perform rituals that look like joy, but are rooted in something older, something deeper. Every movement has meaning. Every drumbeat has timing. You don't clap. You don't cheer. You don't interrupt the rhythm. A wrong gesture is not forgotten. These days, too, belong to the calendar, not to you. You return home more tired than you left, more tense, more aware of how closely you must follow the invisible map. Your neighbor was scolded last year for missing the opening prayer. He had no excuse, he just didn't know. But ignorance is not a shield. The calendar punishes the unprepared as easily as the defiant. You've learned to study the signs. You've learned to anticipate. You've learned not to question what each day requires, only how best to survive it. Even sleep bends to its will. There are nights when you must wake at intervals to light incense, to whisper names, to wait for omens. You do not rest. You observe. You wait. You endure. The calendar has no sympathy for fatigue. It does not reward you for consistency. It only demands. You no longer remember what it's like to rise without checking what day it is, not in name but in duty. Is it a day of silence? A day of salt? A day of pain? The wrong answer means offense, and offense means consequence. So you breathe in time with the calendar, not because you believe, not because you care, but because it is easier than facing what happens when you forget. The calendar is older than your body, and it will outlive your bones. You follow it not out of fear, but out of rhythm. Because it's easier to obey than to ask where it leads. No one looks at you. Not truly. They glance, they nod. They pass by, but their eyes do not stay. You walk through the market, through the fields, past the temple steps, and people move around you as if you are part of the space, not someone inside it. Sometimes they speak to you. They give orders, ask for help, pass a bowl or a bundle of maize. But they do not meet your gaze. Their eyes slide past your face, fixed somewhere just beyond your shoulder, or down toward the ground, or upward, as if expecting something more important to descend from the sky. You've learned not to expect more. You speak plainly, briefly. You keep your face still. There is no invitation in your expression, no recognition in theirs, just motion, just exchange. Then silence again. There are moments when it almost happens, when someone's eyes hover near yours, when it feels like something human might emerge in that space between two faces. But it never lasts. A flicker, then gone, as if remembering just in time that such things are dangerous, or useless, or both. You've looked into the eyes of those above you, officials, priests, men whose clothing is dyed darker than yours is allowed to be. Their eyes do not see you, not because you're small, but because you're known by function, not by presence. You carry this. You clean that. You move when needed. That's all. Even your name is spoken without weight, like a tool's label or the name of a street, important only when someone needs to find you. Forgotten once you're out of view. It doesn't hurt anymore. At least not in the way it used to. As a child, you searched for connection. You stared too long, waited too hopefully, expected too much from people already trained to look through you. Now, your eyes do the same. You study the dirt, the woven paths of baskets, the shifting sky. You've become an expert in pretending not to notice. When someone weeps nearby, you don't ask. When someone stumbles, you keep walking. When someone speaks too softly, you pretend you didn't hear. Not out of cruelty, out of balance, out of protection. If your eyes meet theirs, something might be asked, something might be revealed, and there is no room for that here. Not in the street, not in the home, not in the rhythm that keeps things orderly. You stay unseen because it's safer. They stay distant because it's easier. And so the days pass, with voices but without faces, with hands that pass tools but never touch, with bodies that move together but never feel together. You wonder sometimes if anyone remembers the color of your eyes, if anyone would recognize you from a distance, not by your posture, but by your face. You doubt it. Your reflection in water barely feels like your own. You look away quickly. You don't need reminders. You already know you are seen only in parts, as height, as labor, as shadow, never as a whole, never for long. And when your eyes finally close at night, there is a kind of relief. No more looking, no more avoiding. Just darkness, just breath, and the knowledge that come morning, the silence in their eyes will return, as it always does, as it always will. They tell you it's purification, a sacred pause, a time to cleanse the body and spirit, to quiet your hunger so the gods might listen better. You nod, as everyone does, and you follow the rules. No maize after sundown, no salt for 3 days, no beans, no chili, no meat of any kind. Water, but only if offered first in silence. You prepare your meals with care, knowing they will not fill you. You chew slowly, knowing the taste will vanish too quickly. You tell yourself this is for something greater, that the ache in your stomach is a kind of prayer. But underneath the ritual, there is something simpler, more ordinary. You're hungry. Not just now, not just today, always. And the ritual gives it shape, gives it permission. It makes hunger look like devotion. The others do the same. They walk slower, speak less, not out of reverence but fatigue. They say the chants without strength, not because the gods have drawn it from them, but because the body runs thin without food. Even the children are quieter during these days, their hands slower, their eyes duller. You watch them from a distance and wonder if they understand yet, or if they still believe it's special. You remember when you did, when fasting felt like proof of belief. Now it just feels like less of everything, less energy, less warmth, less thought. Your limbs feel heavier in the morning, your mouth dry no matter how often you swallow. But no one complains. That would make it ordinary. That would make it need. And no one here is allowed to need. Offerings are made daily, small bowls of cornmeal, a folded tortilla, a few drops of pulque on a carved stone. You place them with both hands, bow your head, and whisper what was taught. You try not to look at the food too long. It's not for you, it never was. You've seen animals eat better. You've seen the priests burn piles of fruit while people outside the temple gate chew dry leaves. And still, the ritual continues. You don't question its truth. You don't say what you're thinking. That the gods are fed while you are not. That the fire consumes what could nourish. That the cleansing's indistinguishable from deprivation. These are not things you say aloud. They're not even things you let yourself finish thinking. You just breathe through the emptiness and remind yourself it will end. That you'll eat again. Eventually. Just enough to stand. Just enough to forget for a while. When the fast ends, the food returns, but slowly. A flat cake of maize, a thin broth. Nothing rich, nothing heavy. Your body doesn't rush to accept it. It's learned patience, or numbness. You chew without pleasure. You swallow without fullness. You tell yourself it was worth it, that something has shifted, been forgiven, been aligned, that your small discomfort mattered somewhere. But in the quiet of your chest, beneath the chants and customs and sacred flame, you know what it really was. Hunger. Not a symbol, not a gesture, just hunger, dressed in ritual. And you endured it not for meaning, but because you had no choice, because everyone else was doing the same. Because here, hunger with a name feels easier than hunger without one. And if the gods were watching, they said nothing. They rarely do. You hear it in the morning, just after the sky begins to pale. A sound that doesn't fit with the birds or the rustling of cloth or the scrape of stone. It's high and sharp, but not loud. Not like a cry for help. More like a break, like something splitting that shouldn't. No one reacts. No heads turn. No feet pause. You don't either. You keep grinding, washing, sweeping, lifting. The scream rises again, thinner now. Then it's gone. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. The temple is close enough that you can see the top of it if you look up, but you don't. No one does. That place is not for your eyes. You know what happens there, even if no one says the words. And it happens often. During feast days, during star alignments, during droughts, sometimes during nothing at all. The gods do not need a reason. They only need a body. You've seen the process, once or twice, from a distance. A line of figures led by priests in feathers and ash. The slow climb, the smoke, the rhythm of drums that doesn't stop, not even when the blade rises, not even when it falls. You were told not to watch, but you did. Everyone does, at least once. And then you learn not to. Not because it disturbs you, but because it doesn't change anything. You saw a man trembling before he was laid down. You saw another walk with calm so complete it frightened you more than the blood that followed. You remember the way the crowd didn't move, the way children stayed quiet, the way no one cried until long after, if they cried at all. The sound of the heart being lifted, wet, fast, final, has stayed with you longer than the scream. Later that day, people ate tamales, music played, dancers moved through the square. No one spoke of what had happened. The name of the one offered wasn't mentioned. Maybe no one knew it. Maybe that's part of the offering too, that it erases identity, that it gives everything, even memory. You helped clean that day, scrubbing stones with a mixture of lime and water, sweeping ash that smelled like meat. You didn't ask what it was. No one asked. These tasks are done without instruction. You know what needs to be cleared, what needs to be burned, what needs to be hidden beneath fresh flowers. The priests say it's sacred, that without it, the world would stop, that blood must rise so rain will fall, that pain is not wasted when it's witnessed by the gods. You nod. Everyone nods. You do not disagree. You just continue. The next day, it happens again. A different voice, a different scream. Shorter this time. Maybe younger, or just quicker. You hear it while carrying wood. You do not stop. Your hands do not shake. Your feet do not stumble. You've become part of the rhythm now, the rhythm that holds everything in place. Screams, silence, ritual, rest. You know the exact moment when it's over, not because of a sound, but because of the stillness that follows. As if the air itself is waiting for something. And then life resumes. Markets open, baskets shift, cloth flaps in the wind. No one says what they heard. No one asks. You say nothing too, not out of fear, but because here, silence is survival, and the screams, like everything else, pass. They pass, and the world goes on. You hear it before you feel it. The soft tapping on the leaves above, the distant hiss against stone, the change in air that makes even your skin listen. Rain doesn't arrive quietly here, not even when it falls gently. Because rain is never just rain. It is a sign, a message, a correction. It is watched, counted, measured, not in drops but in meaning. If it comes too early, it means the gods are impatient. If it comes late, it means they are angry. If it comes hard and fast, washing away the fields and choking the canals, it is not misfortune, it is punishment. For what? No one says. Sometimes for nothing. You step out into it not for relief, but out of duty, to collect, to carry, to witness. You let it soak your arms, your face, your feet, and you do not smile. You do not play. Rain is not joy. Rain is responsibility. People change when it rains. They speak less. They move faster. They look toward the sky more than the earth. You see elders with eyes closed, counting silently, lips moving in patterns you don't know. You see women touching the wet stone of the courtyard and whispering thanks, even when the rain ruins what they've hung to dry. The priests take note of the first drop, the direction of wind, the shape of the clouds. Every shift in the sky becomes an omen. A wet season too short means hunger. A dry season too long means sickness. Flooding means sacrifice. Drought means more sacrifice. The gods speak in weather, and rain is their clearest voice. But it is not a language of comfort. You've seen families weep in a dry month and still offer the last of their grain to the altar. You've seen children stand in the cold downpour, arms raised, waiting for the sign that their offering has been accepted. Sometimes that sign never comes. When the sky breaks open and the downpour is heavy, you don't take shelter right away. You wait. You see who else is watching. You see how the water runs, if it pools, if it floods, if it disappears too quickly into the soil. The behavior of the rain matters as much as the rain itself. You've learned that by watching others. No one taught you directly. They just reacted, and you followed. A slow drizzle might mean good fortune. A sudden storm might mean the gods are testing someone. Maybe you. Maybe everyone. You never ask. There is no comfort in the answer. So you move through the rain when needed. You let it sting your skin, mat your hair, soak your clothes. You bear it, not as weather, but as weight. And when it finally stops, you do not celebrate. You clean, you repair, you begin again. And sometimes, nothing happens. The rain falls, the sun returns, the world dries. And still, you wait for meaning. Because the silence after rain can be just as loud. You don't know if it was a blessing or a warning. No one does. The next few days will reveal it. A failed crop, a sudden death, a fever that spreads from house to house, or maybe nothing. Maybe this time the gods were only watching, or maybe they weren't watching at all. That uncertainty becomes part of you, like the scent of wet soil or the cold that lingers in your bones. You live in a world where the sky decides, and the sky never explains. So each time the clouds gather, you brace yourself, not for rain, but for what might come after. Because here, water is never just water. It is always a question, and sometimes an answer you never asked for. The stone is always colder than you expect. Even when the sun has burned the plaza for hours, even when your skin already sweats, the moment your knees touch the temple floor, the chill rises into your body like breath drawn backward. You kneel because you must, not because anyone said your name, not because a voice called you out, but because it's the day marked for kneeling, and the stone waits. Its surface is worn smooth by thousands before you, thousands who pressed their weight into the same lines. the same indentations. You recognize one by touch now, a shallow dip just wide enough for both kneecaps. You place yourself into it without thought. Your hands fold, your back curves, your eyes drop, and then you stay. Minutes pass, or hours. You never count. You simply remain, still as the carving beside you, until the chant ends, or the drum slows, or someone quietly begins to rise. You're not alone. There are always others. A row of backs bent forward, a scatter of breath held or released in rhythm. No one speaks. Words have no place here. Only posture, only presence. The stone does not reward the faithful. It does not forgive the uncertain. It merely holds you. The longer you kneel, the more you feel your body slip away from your thoughts. The ache begins at the edge of your ankles, then your knees, then your lower back. Soon, even your fingers go numb. You shift slightly if you must, but never enough to be noticed, never enough to draw eyes. Because everyone watches, even in silence. A movement too bold suggests doubt. A sigh too loud hints at pride. You keep still. You keep silent. You let the pain settle deep, not to cleanse, not to grow, just to prove you stayed. If you've sinned, and even if you haven't, you return to the stone differently, no longer on your knees, now on your stomach, arms outstretched, face pressed to the cold that no longer surprises you. This position strips away what little you have left. No dignity, no distinction, no sound. You become length and weight and skin. You stay low. You listen for signs, footsteps of a priest, the hush of others praying beside you, the scrape of a blade far above. You do not ask what is forgiven. You do not ask what is seen. You simply lie there until you are told to rise, or until everyone else leaves and your absence is noticed and someone lifts you back to your feet like a thing. The stone remembers your heat for moments only. Then it's cold again, ready for the next. There are days when your knees bleed, days when you do not feel them at all. And still, you return. Not out of devotion, not even out of fear, but because the stone is part of the rhythm, and you no longer know what happens if you step outside it. You do not pray for change. You do not pray for mercy. You pray because the act itself keeps you from unraveling. The stone holds the form of your body even when you can't. It supports the weight you no longer name. And when you finally stand, slowly, shakily, silently, you carry that cold with you. In your bones, in your breath, in the quiet space between one obligation and the next. It doesn't leave you, not fully, not ever. The stone is always there, and it is never warm. You see it when you're sent to the upper courtyard, just for delivery, never to stay. A tray of roasted turkey, thick tamales wrapped in clean leaves, bowls of fruit still bright and wet. You carry it without dropping your gaze, without inhaling too deeply. The scent is strong, layered, chili, herbs, smoke, flesh. It sits in your throat like a memory. You don't pause. You walk carefully. You hand it over. The man who takes it doesn't look at you. He nods, maybe. Then the door closes, and the smell is gone. You return to your quarter and eat your own food, if there is any left. Dry maize, thin broth, maybe a few beans if the week was good. You chew without speaking. No one mentions what you just saw. No one has to. It's always the same. Someone else eats better than you. The warriors are easy to spot. They walk with straight backs and steady feet. They wear feathers in their hair and jaguar skins on their shoulders. Their arms are thick, their teeth strong. You've seen the portions they're given after a raid. Bowls of blood stew, thick with meat and bone, enough to feed 5 of you. But it's not shared. It's not questioned. They fought, they returned, and now they eat. You clean up afterward, scrape the bones into piles, wipe grease from stone. You tell yourself it's fair. That strength must be fed. That protection has a price. But still, when you return to your mat at night and your stomach twists quietly in the dark, that fairness feels hollow. You dream of food you'll never taste. You wake to the smell of smoke and remember whose fire it came from. The priests eat differently. Not more, not louder, but with more certainty. You watch them take their meals in silence, in pairs, heads bowed not in gratitude but in habit. Their food is plain but abundant, sweet cakes for the gods, then for themselves. Cups of pulque, bits of fish, even during fasts. They do not glance up when you pass. You sweep around them like wind, unnoticed, untouching. You wonder if they know what hunger feels like, if they remember chewing slowly to stretch a meal. Maybe they did once, but the gods do not go hungry, and neither do those who speak for them. You do not resent them. Resentment is dangerous, but you carry the image of their table in your chest, like a bruise you don't touch. A reminder of the spaces you will never enter. Even the children of the nobles eat with more than you do. Their leftovers could be your feast, their snacks, your celebration. You once saw a child drop a honey fruit onto the dirt and walk away. You stood still, pretending not to notice, waiting until they turned the corner before you stooped to pick it up. It was warm from the sun, soft, still good. You ate it quickly, before the feeling of shame could outweigh the hunger. That's what it's like most days. Hunger pressed down beneath obedience. Not enough to kill you, just enough to remind you. Every bowl you carry, every scent you breathe but do not follow, each one marks the boundary between you and them. You are needed, you are used, but you are not fed like they are. Someone else eats better than you, and always will. You don't remember the first time you gave blood. Not the sacrifice, not the cut, not the offering. But you remember the bowl, shallow, painted, with a crack running through the rim. You remember the way the priest nodded when it was full enough, not in thanks, but in approval, like checking a task completed. Blood here isn't a symbol. It isn't tragic. It's expected. It seals promises, marks loyalty, proves intent. You bleed to give thanks. You bleed to ask permission. You bleed to show that what you say has weight. And sometimes, you bleed simply because it's your turn. The knife is sharp. The cut is small. But the message is large. Without it, your words mean less. Your presence means less. Blood is the price of being heard, even when you have nothing to say. You've seen it used in trade. Not openly, not on the street, but during private bargains, between hands hidden by cloth. A drop on a stone can hold more weight than a string of shells or polished beads. It shows seriousness. It shows risk. It means that the transaction is now tied to something sacred. If the deal is broken, the gods are involved. You don't question how that works. You just know it does. You've seen men press thorns into their tongues before speaking to a noble. You've seen women slice their earlobes before stepping into a meeting. not to show pain, but value. Pain is not the cost. Blood is. Pain fades. Blood stains. And stains are remembered. There are ceremonies where entire families offer blood at once. Lined up, kneeling, slicing arms, legs, cheeks, offering pieces of themselves into the fire or onto stone. Children are taught how to do it carefully, neatly. The cut must be visible, but not dangerous. It must bleed enough, but not too much. The wrong kind of wound shows weakness. The right kind shows discipline. You remember your first ceremony like that. Your hands trembling, your breath too fast, your body cold even in the sun. But you did it. The blood came quickly, and the priest nodded. Afterward, your mother gave you water, and no one spoke of it again. Not because it wasn't important, but because it was expected. Everyone gives. Everyone bleeds. That's how the system moves. You've heard stories of people who refused. Quiet stories, half-spoken. A man who wouldn't cut. A woman who wouldn't kneel. They're gone now. You don't know where. No one does. Refusing the blade is like refusing food, or time, or breath. It doesn't make sense. It removes you from the world. Blood is not yours to hoard. It belongs to the cycle, to the gods, to the community. You do not own it. You hold it. And when the time comes, you offer it. Like maize, like labor, like words. You give because you must. Because the world runs on what flows, on what spills, on what leaves you weaker but not invisible. Blood is not pain. It is currency. It is evidence. It is trust. And trust here is always earned in red. They are born from your body, but not into your keeping. The moment your child first cries, they belong to the world, its rules, its gods, its needs. You hold them, you feed them, you teach them how to walk and speak, but not how to choose. That's not your place. The calendar decides what day they arrived. The priest decides what that day means. A good sign, a strong number, a certain star, and suddenly your child is spoken for. A path laid before they can stand. A name not yours to give. Sometimes it's a temple roll. Sometimes a warrior's draft. Sometimes a silent promise to the rain god. If there's been too much dryness, you nod when it's announced. You bow when the elder places the mark, and you don't argue. Because here, questioning isn't brave. It's dangerous, and it wouldn't change anything. You've seen it happen to others. A girl pulled from her home at 6 to begin chant lessons. Her hair cut in the temple style before she understood why. A boy given to the merchant house across the square, renamed and dressed in clothes too fine for his age, forced to speak with strangers while his mother stayed silent in the doorway. No farewells, no explanation, just redirection. That's the word they use, redirection. As if the child were water, as if you were never more than a channel. You tell yourself it's fate, that the gods know better, that perhaps it's even an honor. But you've seen the way some children look back over their shoulders. The confusion, the grasping hands, the hesitation, and still, no one moves to stop it. There are ceremonies where your child must kneel beside you, then be led away for dedication. They return marked on the wrist, the shoulder, the neck, sometimes with pigment, sometimes with cuts. And that mark is not yours to touch. It belongs to someone else now. You feed them still. You clothe them still. But every time they bow in a new way, repeat a new phrase, dress in unfamiliar colors, you are reminded You are not their owner. You are their caretaker. Until they are taken. The temple can call them. The market can claim them. The warrior house can name them. And you, your heart, your effort, your love, does not factor into that choice. You learn to love them in pieces, to let go of parts before the whole is gone, to watch them speak someone else's words with your voice still ringing in their throat. At night, you run your fingers through their hair while they sleep, tracing lines that will soon be cut or covered. You wonder how long they'll stay, how many more mornings they'll rise under your roof, how many more meals you'll share. And when the day comes, and it always comes, you do not cry. Or if you do it quietly, into your sleeve, behind the house. You straighten their clothes. You walk them to the stone gate. You press your palm to the center of their back and push gently, once, not to guide them, just to say goodbye. Then you return home, sweep the floor, boil the water, act as if nothing has changed, even though everything has. Because here you do not own your children, you only borrow them, until the world calls them elsewhere. The stars are always there, even when clouds cover them. You grow up seeing them each night, thousands of quiet lights arranged in ways you can't explain. Some form shapes, some seem to move, some flicker like they're alive. You watch them while lying on your back after work, your hands still stained from soil or ash. You look up because there's nowhere else to look. But no one tells you what they mean. Not truly. You know that they matter. You've been told which nights to stay indoors, which mornings to wake early, which days not to speak too much. You've heard that certain stars rise only when war is near, or when sickness will follow. But you don't know how anyone knows. That knowledge belongs elsewhere, to the priests, to those who speak to gods, not to you. Sometimes you hear phrases repeated. The twin lights have crossed. The serpent climbs tonight. The sky will close at the next moon. People say these things like instructions, not explanations, and you act accordingly. You eat what you're told, wear what's required, avoid certain paths, wash your face in the river before dawn. But when you ask why, the answer is always the same. It's not for you to know. You stop asking after a while. The sky becomes something you read through others. You stop searching for patterns and instead watch for gestures. How the priests walk that morning, how the elder women cover their heads, how the temple doors stay open or shut. These signs become your calendar, your guide. The stars shine, but the meaning is filtered, portioned, controlled. You're told only enough to stay aligned. No more. You wonder what would happen if you knew more. If you could read the sky for yourself. If the long curved tails of light or the absence of certain constellations would speak to you directly. But that thought fades quickly, because knowledge carries risk. To see too much is to be responsible, and you've seen what happens to those who are seen as questioning the balance. A man once drew the stars into the dust with a stick. Tracing shapes, he said, meant something. He wasn't a priest. He wasn't marked. A week later, he was gone. No one said why. His drawings were washed away. His name was not spoken again. Since then, even children know better than to guess aloud. You look, but you do not interpret. You do not name what you see. You keep wonder tucked beneath silence, like a sharp stone hidden under a blanket. And yet, you still look. Every night, you glance upward. Not for guidance, not even for comfort. but out of habit, out of need. There is something in the stars that pulls your eyes even when your heart knows better. Maybe it's longing, maybe it's fear, maybe it's something older than either. The sky feels close and far all at once, like it remembers more than the land ever could. You watch it shift, slowly, over weeks and months, and you feel the seasons move inside your body in the same rhythm. But still, no one explains it. No one hands you the map. You live beneath the stars, under their rules, guided by their signs, but they are not yours. Not really. You are allowed to follow, never to understand. And so you live in a world written above you, in lines you are not meant to read, only obey. You lie down because your body demands it, not because you believe rest will come. The mat is thin, woven from reed and old fibers, barely enough to soften the ground beneath you. There's no pillow, no warmth, except what your own skin holds. You press your back to the wall, not for comfort, but for safety. You've learned to sleep with your side facing the room, your limbs tucked in, your ears open. Others shift nearby, slow breathing, the creak of joints, someone coughing in their throat, too weak or too proud to clear it. The space is close. The air is thick. You know each sound, each shadow, each scrape of movement. Sleep here is not escape. It's interruption. It happens between moments of listening, between flickers of light from the outside, between the last thought and the first footstep. The cold settles in slow. Not the sharp bite of early morning, but a deep, crawling chill that finds your spine and coils there. You don't move. Movement makes it worse. Your blanket, if you have one, covers only part of you. You shift it from shoulder to knee, knee to shoulder, over and over, until you give up and let the air take what it wants. The noises outside never stop. Dogs bark. Someone mumbles in sleep. A pot shifts in the wind. You listen for what shouldn't be there. A voice too close, a step too fast. The sudden blare of the temple trumpet. That sound comes without warning. It slices through dreams, through breathing, through the fragile rhythm of near rest. And when it comes, you rise, immediately, without words, without complaint, because hesitation invites notice. And here, notice is never a gift. You've dreamt of soft beds, though you've never felt one. You've dreamt of stillness, of silence, of warmth that stays. But those dreams are more tiring than the day. They leave you with a hunger for something that doesn't exist in your world. Better to keep your mind close, your thoughts small. Count breaths, count heartbeats. Wait for sleep to come not as relief, but as surrender. When it arrives, it is shallow, temporary. Your body never lets go fully. One part of you stays ready, ears tilted to sound, muscles tight beneath skin. You've been woken too many times by command, by accident, by fear. You've seen others pulled from mats without reason, scolded for sleeping too heavily. Since then, you trained yourself not to dream, not to drift too far. You rest like prey, not because you think someone's hunting, but because that's how survival feels now. And yet, sleep still comes, not because it's deserved, because the body folds under its own weight, because even vigilance has limits. You fall into it like a stone into water, quietly, without splash. And when you wake, whether from sound or light, or the shift of someone else beside you, you feel no renewal, no softness, just the dullness of having not moved enough, not stretched enough, not breathed deep enough. You rise stiff, as if you hadn't slept at all. But you don't complain. You rub your arms, you roll your shoulders, you begin again. Because sleep here isn't shelter. It's pause, temporary, conditional, and always waiting to be taken away. You hear it sometimes, far off, sudden, bright, uncontrolled. Laughter echoing from the upper courts or drifting from the edge of a festival space. It rises above the drums, above the chanting, above the market noise. For a moment, it sounds like something from another world. Something light, careless, untied to duty. You pause when you hear it, even if your hands are full. Not because it calls to you, but because it reminds you that joy still exists, that it hasn't disappeared, only moved somewhere else. Somewhere higher, richer, permitted. You return to your task without expression. Your face smooths. Your shoulders stay low. No one asks what you're thinking, and you don't offer it. Laughter isn't for you. Not here. Not now. Maybe not ever. You remember doing it once. Real laughter, full-bodied, the kind that shakes something loose inside. It was a long time ago. You can't recall what was funny, just the sensation of being lighter than your weight. You were younger. You hadn't yet learned the posture of stillness. Someone heard you, a figure in red cloth passing by. They didn't speak, just stopped, looked, then kept walking. But the next day, your name was moved to a different list. Your tasks were doubled for a week. No explanation, no correction, just adjustment. Since then, you've smiled only in silence, only briefly, only behind your hand. Not because you were told not to laugh, but because laughter invites notice, and notice is rarely kind. The people above you laugh often, at gatherings during ceremonies, while eating things you'll never taste. Their voices rise in bursts, overlapping, free. You've served at these events. You've seen their shoulders shaking, their mouths open wide. They throw their heads back. They slap each other's backs. Sometimes they even cry from it. You bring more drink. You clear their plates. You leave before they remember you were there. Their joy is large, bright, and harmless to them. It means safety, indulgence, control. You never resent them. Resentment has no outlet here. But you notice the difference. Their laughter takes up space. Yours would not be allowed to. Among your own, humor exists, but it is quiet. A flick of the eyes, a muttered phrase, a moment of shared absurdity in a long, unbearable task. The corners of mouths lift, but quickly fall again. The laughter stays inside the body, never reaching the throat. It's safer that way. You do not laugh in public. You do not laugh during meals. You do not laugh in prayer, even when the chant is sung off-key or the incense makes someone sneeze. You keep your face calm, your breath measured, because even joy here must follow rules, and laughter, full and loud and uncontained, does not follow anything. That's why it belongs to others, to those who are allowed to forget, to those who never had to learn silence the way you did. They still call you by your name, but less often than before. When they do, it's clipped, functional, placed at the end of an instruction or the beginning of a task. You respond automatically, not because it holds meaning, but because your body has learned to move when it hears the sound. You can't remember the last time someone said it with softness, or curiosity, or anything that wasn't urgency. You used to write it in the dust with your finger as a child. You used to whisper it to yourself before sleep, as if keeping it alive that way. Now it feels thinner each time you hear it, like a garment worn too long. Still holding shape, but threadbare. You look at others, and you know it's the same. Faces blur, voices blend, only roles remain. The man who carries water, the woman who makes flour, the boy with the bad leg. You're known by what you do, not who you are. There are people whose names are carved in stone. Priests, warriors, builders of temples. Their names are sung, painted, repeated. You walk past their monuments each day. You sweep dust from their steps. You prepare food for their rituals. You bow when their stories are spoken aloud. No one tells yours. No one will. Not because you've done nothing, but because what you've done is the kind of work that disappears when finished. The path you cleared is walked and forgotten. The fire you built is cold by morning. The child you raised is no longer yours. You exist in the in-between, necessary but unrecorded. You are part of the structure, but not the story. And with each passing day, your name slips further from the mouths of others, even as your breath continues. Sometimes you try to remember the full names of those you've worked beside for years. Not the nicknames, not the shouted labels, but the names they were born into. You fail. You picture their faces and realize those too have blurred. You recall gestures more easily than expressions, voices more easily than eyes. The mind simplifies what the heart cannot carry. So you understand now how forgetting begins while a person is still alive. It doesn't wait for death. It happens quietly, naturally. First, people stop asking questions. Then they stop using your name when you're not in the room. Then they stop speaking of you at all. You vanish in layers, not in absence but in reduction, and no one notices, because everyone else is vanishing too. You do not grieve this, not anymore. It would take energy you don't have. You accept it, like you accept the cold stone at night, or the dust in your food. Your name was never meant to last. It was meant to function, so someone could find you, summon you, command you. That purpose fades as your usefulness fades. And when your hands are too weak, your eyes too dim, your steps too slow, the name will be spoken even less. Perhaps one last time when someone points to your place in line and says, "That one, he used to carry bricks." After that, silence. But the silence won't be cruel, just quiet, just final. And long before it comes, you'll already feel it starting. Your name, still on your tongue, already fading. And the breath you take after, already halfway gone. You wake, you move, you work, and so does everything around you. The temple drums beat at their time. The water is drawn in rhythm. The marketplace opens with the same shouts. The same paths are walked. The same gestures are made. You do your part within it, without question, because you are needed, not praised, not remembered, just needed. If your task isn't done, someone else notices, not with anger but with irritation, like a door that won't close properly. You are the hinge, you are the wheel, you are the stone beneath another's foot, and when you're in place, everything turns as it should. But no one looks at you while it moves. No one says, That one keeps it going. They only notice when you're gone, when it slows, when something sticks. Then, your absence is discussed, but never your presence. You feel it most during large rituals. The city alive with motion, with fire and color and music. Each part perfectly timed. You carry baskets. You place offerings. You clean ash before it stains. Your hands do exactly what they must. So do 100 others, maybe more. You never see the whole shape of it. You're inside it, close to the edge. You follow the part you've been given without knowing what it serves. When the festival ends, the leaders smile. The priests raise their arms. The crowd roars. You stand to the side, shoulder to shoulder with those who did just as much, and you watch. No one calls your name. No one gestures for you to come forward. You don't expect it. That kind of recognition is for those who shape the image. You only helped it hold. You wonder sometimes if the system would stop without you, if the gears would lock, if the music would falter. You want to believe it would, that your part matters, and in small ways it does. When your hands are missing, someone else is forced to stretch further. When your feet don't show up, someone walks twice the distance. There is friction, there is pause, but never collapse. The mechanism slows, it grinds, but it doesn't fall apart, because the structure is larger than any person. It absorbs you. It absorbs your effort, your time, your silence. You become one more current in the river, one more bone in the wall. And it's hard not to disappear into that shape. Hard not to let yourself believe that being part of something is the same as being whole within it. But you know the difference. You feel it in the moments when the noise fades, just a little, and you are left with your own thoughts. When you pause with your hands still and realize no one would notice if you sat down. When you hear the bell ring and feel your body move before your mind even reacts. You are trained into usefulness, not belonging. Your body fits the space around it, but your heart stays outside, observing, waiting, hoping, sometimes, for something to reach back and say, you matter, not just because you function, but because you are. But that never comes. Instead, you return to the rhythm. You do what is asked, because without you, the world stutters, and with you, it moves. But you, yourself, stay still, a part of something, but never whole. There are days when the air shifts, not with sound, but with the absence of it. No chants rise from the temples, no clatter of grinding stones or barked orders from elders. Even the birds seem to stop. You notice it without meaning to, halfway through a task, when your hands slow and your breathing becomes the loudest thing around you. No one speaks. No one asks why. You meet eyes briefly with another worker across the plaza, and both of you look away at once. You've lived through this kind of quiet before, and you've learned it's not peace. It's a warning. Something is coming, or something has already happened. But here, information arrives late and soft, while silence arrives early and sharp. You listen harder, as if the missing sounds could tell you more than words ever have. But they don't. They only remind you that stillness is never empty. You wait for the drums. They usually mark time, call order, signal the start and end of everything. But today, they don't come. And without them, the hours stretch into something formless. People move slower. Their footsteps echo louder. You hear the scrape of baskets being set down, the creak of wooden doors, the rustle of cloth. All of it sounds too close, too clear. Even the wind feels suspicious. A breeze through the trees turns into something almost spoken, like a breath that wants to say your name but won't. In this kind of silence, everything matters. A cough, a dropped tool, a child's misstep. Each one lands like a shout. You become smaller without realizing it. Shoulders closer, steps lighter, voice gone. You don't even whisper. No one does. Because no one wants to be the first to break what might be listening. You remember the last time this happened. You were younger, but the feeling was the same. That heavy quiet, followed by a procession you weren't allowed to see. A few names vanished from your quarter after that. Not taken in anger, not taken with noise, just gone. Afterward, the drums returned. The prayers resumed. But for days, everyone moved as though the ground itself might react to their weight. That's how it feels now. Like the world is balancing on something delicate, and your voice might tilt it in the wrong direction. So you stay quiet. You don't ask who went missing. You don't ask what is being decided in the upper rooms. You don't ask if it will come for you too. Because in this place, silence speaks more clearly than any mouth. And when the drums finally return, hours or days later, you don't feel relief. Just a different kind of pressure. The rhythm is slower. The tones are lower. The beat spreads through the stones, into your knees, into your ribs. It means something has been settled, chosen, removed. You never find out what or who. You don't need to. The silence already told you enough. It reminded you how fragile your presence is, how easily sound can disappear, how easily you can disappear with it. So you return to your work without a word. You move in time with the others, and you wait for the next quiet. Because here, it always comes. Louder than drums, heavier than speech, and impossible to ignore. They arrive before the sun is high, walking in a line, robes pressed, eyes lowered. The priests. They never shout. They don't need to. One look, one name spoken softly, and that's enough. You keep working, hands steady, head bent just a little more than usual. Not too much. It draws attention. Not too little. It suggests defiance. You learn that posture over time. It becomes part of you. The names they call are not random, but to you, they feel like lightning. You never know where it will strike. One morning, it's the man who worked beside you for 10 years. Another day, it's a girl barely tall enough to carry water. There's no pattern you can find. You don't try anymore. When the name is called, the body moves. No protest, no questions, and then it's over. You never look up when it happens. That's dangerous. Watching makes it real, makes you visible. So you keep your eyes low, your breath calm, your muscles loose. But inside, something else moves. Not relief exactly, not joy. Gratitude maybe, but twisted. You didn't ask to be spared. You didn't earn it. You were just passed over, forgotten, not chosen. And that absence becomes a blessing so sharp it cuts. You want to fall to your knees and press your forehead to the stone. You want to thank someone, something, anyone. But you can't. You stay still. You keep working. You nod when spoken to. And deep in your chest, you whisper the only words you dare to form. Not today. Thank you. You watch the chosen leave, their steps slow, their faces unreadable. Some are brave, some are numb. some tremble in ways they try to hide. No one comforts them. No one walks beside them. They walk alone, even in a line. And your silence becomes an offering, a promise not to draw attention, not to ask why, not to suggest a mistake. You think of what they'll face: a role, a task, a blade, a god. You don't know, you were never told. You don't need to know. The only thing that matters is that it wasn't you. Not this time. And in a place where nothing belongs to you, where your body, your name, your children can be taken without warning, that one moment of being overlooked feels like the purest kind of mercy. And yet, even that mercy feels temporary. You know your name could still be called. Tomorrow. Next moon. Next season. The calendar turns without stopping. The eyes above still sweep across you. And each time you survive the selection, each time the priests pass by, you shrink just a little more. Not from fear, from gratitude too large to carry. You never say it aloud. You never mark it in ash or stone, but you feel it. Every night you sleep in your own corner. Every morning your feet touch the same ground. Every hour your name remains unspoken. It's not victory, it's not safety, it's just the slow, silent miracle of being passed by. And even if no one sees it, even if no one else gives thanks, you do quietly, deeply, every time. You miss one morning, just one. Your legs don't move the way they should. Your stomach twists in ways you can't explain. You try to sit up, then lie back down again. You listen for someone asking your name, someone checking why you haven't come. No one does. Outside, the sounds go on as always. The scraping of sandals, the rhythm of water poured from pots, a voice counting bundles, the slap of hands against stone. The day begins without you, as if your place in it never existed. You wait longer, hoping to hear your name spoken with concern or even frustration. But it doesn't come. You are absent, but the work is not. It continues. The sun rises, the offerings are made, the tasks are done. You are not there, and nothing stops. By the second day, you realize the rhythm has already repaired itself. Your job has been taken up by another, not permanently, not with ownership, just filled, like water shifting into a space left behind. No one asked if they should. No one spoke about you. You are not a story. You are not a question. You are a silence easily ignored. Maybe someone noticed you were missing. Maybe not. But they didn't stop. The lines still form. The fields are still cleared. The meals still arrive in their order. You lie in your corner, watching the dust in the light, and understand that presence was never security. Only movement matters here. Only continuity. The system has no time for pause, and it certainly has none for waiting. When you return, if you return, there's no welcome. No where were you? No are you well? Just a task placed in your hands. A nod. A gesture toward what was left undone. You step back into the line with less certainty, more ache. The muscles haven't recovered. The fever hasn't passed. But no one slows for you. They walk the same pace. They carry the same weight. You try not to fall behind. You try not to show how much you've lost in just a few days, because weakness draws attention, and attention here is never gentle. You hear your name spoken again, but it feels different now. Like a tool being picked up after sitting too long in the sun. Useful again, but not missed. Never missed. And if you hadn't returned at all, if the illness had lasted, if your breath had stopped, if your body had been carried out at dawn, nothing would have changed. Someone else would have bent where you bent, carried what you carried, slept where you slept. The mat would be rolled, the water poured, the names called without pause. No ceremony, no stone, just the quiet replacement of a part. You are not cruelly forgotten. You are gently erased by the passing of days, by the needs that never lessen. And in time, even you stop expecting more. You stop hoping for someone to notice, to care, to mark your place, because you finally understand. No one waits for you. Not here. Not in this world. Not even for a moment. You wake up again. Bones sore, breath shallow, joints stiff, but you wake. And that alone is enough for them to say, it works. The rituals, the blood, the silence, the endless observance of rules you never chose. You are still alive, and therefore, everything they've built must be right. Your life is the evidence, not your joy, not your purpose, not even your health. Just the fact that your body still moves, that your hands still lift, that you haven't collapsed in public or failed to stand when called. No one asks how you feel. They only glance at you and nod, as if to confirm that your continued existence proves the gods are pleased, that the grain will grow, that the sickness will pass, that the sun will rise again. You are not the reason. You are the result. When you bleed and don't die, they say the gods have accepted your offering. When you starve and still wake with strength enough to walk, they say the fast has purified your spirit. When your child is taken and the sky doesn't crack open, they say it was necessary. The system surrounds you, presses down on you, hollows you out, but never breaks you fully. And that is all it needs. Not your happiness, not your truth, just your function. You speak the chants, you burn the incense, you kneel at the stone. And every time you survive it, the world becomes a little more certain in its own correctness. If you didn't make it, if the pain swallowed you or the ritual failed, you'd be forgotten. But because you remain, even in silence, even in suffering, they point to you as proof. You hear it in the way they speak about others. She didn't follow the fast, and look what happened. He hesitated before giving his blood, and now his crops fail. The connections are never questioned. The cause and effect are always clear, never to be tested, never to be examined. You've seen people collapse in the fields, their bodies giving out after weeks of exhaustion. And someone will murmur, "He must have made a mistake." As if the body is not supposed to break. As if the structure is so perfect that only human error explains suffering. But when you keep going, despite your own cracks, no one sees them. No one asks what it cost. They only say, "See? It works." And so you carry their faith for them, on your back, in your breath, with every step that doesn't end in collapse. You know you don't matter, not as a person, but your presence does. You stand in the line, you lift the weight, you survive the day. And that means the prayers are working. The sacrifices are accepted. The gods are watching with favor. You may never understand the words of the priests or the meanings of the stars, but you understand your role. You are the proof. The evidence that all of this, the pain, the cold, the hunger, is not without purpose. They look at you and see success because you are still here. You're still breathing. Even if your name fades, even if your thoughts shrink to silence, even if your soul feels numb, you continue. And so does the world. Not because it's fair, not because it's kind, but because it believes you are enough to justify itself. And as long as you remain upright, no one will ask what it took. The mat beneath you is thin, worn smooth by your own weight and the weight of days before it. The earth below is uneven, but you don't shift to find comfort. You lie still. Not because sleep was deep or long or healing. It wasn't. You woke before the first light, like always, with joints stiff, back tight, mouth dry, but you didn't move. You didn't reach for water or turn your head or push yourself upright. You just stayed where you were, because the day is already known. It will not offer anything new. The same voices, the same dust, the same tasks with different names. So you stay where you are, not with resistance, not with protest, just with emptiness. There's no urgency, no expectation, no reason. Your body hasn't quit. It just no longer rises with hope. You listen to the sounds returning. A pot set down. Footsteps crossing packed dirt. Someone coughing into a cloth. The world wakes like a ritual, same each day, and you do not interrupt it. Your stillness isn't noticed. Or if it is, no one says anything. That's part of the rhythm too. Some days, someone doesn't move, and the line moves around them. You've done it yourself, stepping over legs, passing by silence, never asking why. It's easier that way. You hear the others rising now, some whispering, some stretching. The slap of sandals, the clink of clay. But your body remains where it is, arms pressed close, eyes half open, breath slow. You're not hiding. You're not resting. You're simply there. Present in shape only, as if you've become part of the floor itself. You remember when mornings felt different. Not easier, never easier, but alive with something faint and invisible. A sense that the day might change, that someone might speak your name kindly, that the food might satisfy, that the work might feel lighter just once. You carried that hope carefully, like a coal that had to be protected from wind. But over time it cooled, not in one moment, not with one loss, just slowly, silently, like heat slipping from the body during sleep. You stopped waiting for better. You stopped asking. You did what you were told, then what was expected, then what no one noticed. And now even your stillness is practiced. It's not laziness, it's surrender. Quiet, resigned surrender to the fact that nothing waits for you, not even yourself. Eventually, your body will rise. It always does. Not out of will, but out of habit. It will sit. It will walk. It will carry and kneel and return to its place by evening. But not yet. For now, you lie still, because there is nothing you long for, no surprise, no break, no voice in the dark saying, "It's over." Only the breath in your chest and the weight in your limbs. And in that stillness, you feel something like peace. Not joy, not relief, just the absence of reaching. the quiet acceptance of a life that continues because it always has. You lie still not because you're rested, but because there is nothing left to move toward. Nothing left to wait for. Just the day ahead, and the knowledge that for now, it has not yet begun. And that was the day. Or rather, just one day, shaped by centuries of silence, stone, and survival. Harsh, endless, ordinary. A life without pause, without softness, but even there, beneath the weight of ritual and hunger, someone like you endured. So now, breathe out. Let the night hold you. You're safe for now. And tomorrow, there will be another story.